Welcome back to Mohawk Motors, everybody. My name is Jason. I've got what I'm hoping is going to be a quick project. We'll see how things go. But I'm going to basically turn two trucks that are messed up into one good truck. And I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on this one, but I'm going to be down here working. I need to get this done so I can free up some space. And I'd like to sell another truck and get some money coming in. So let me show you what we're doing. All right, guys. So like I said, I've got two trucks that they have kind of opposite problems. So I'm going to take the good from one, put it with the good from the other to make one good truck. And I'll just show you what they are. This first one, you can see it's another single cab short bed truck. Guys, I like doing these because it's hard to lose on them. You can buy them cheap enough from insurance auction that it leaves you plenty of space to make a profit, even if you have to spend a little bit of money to fix them up. In this case, I've got less than $3,000 in both of these trucks. And I think the only money I'm going to have to spend aside from the purchase price is a little bit of paint material. But here they are. This first one, it's a 2000, obviously single cab short bed Chevy. This one's four-wheel drive. You can see it was hit in the back here. It was a step side. Hit it in the back, bent the bumper up, bent the bed up. But as far as I can see and tell, the frame is straight, the frame is good. And that's really what we need from this one is the frame. This side's not bad, but it's not perfect either. But the cab is super rusty on this thing. You can't really tell because they've got sheet metal screwed over the rockers, but it would need rockers, it would need cab corners, it would need a couple cab supports. The cab is smoked. But the front clip is nice. I'm not sure how the cab gets so rusty, but the front fenders and hoods stay nice, but they are. And that's what we need from this one, the front clip and the frame. Now our second truck, like I said, opposite. Boom, she took a hit in the front. This one is a 2002 Chevy Silverado. And this one, fortunately for me, the cab has a few dents, but it's rust-free. It's a beautiful rust-free cab. And the bed is also super nice, almost no rust on the bed. And as you can tell from the damage up here, the frame is smashed. So my plan here is take the bed and cab from this truck, put them onto the frame of the white truck with the front clip from the white truck, and I'll have a pretty nice truck that'll just be two colors. I'm really not worried about spraying some paint. I know you haven't seen me do that yet, but the more I read, the more I learn. My confidence is growing. So I don't think it's going to be a huge problem to do some paint on this truck once I get everything put together how I want it. Now the one downside of both of these trucks, like a lot of single cabs, they are both V6 trucks. However, I do have an extended cab out back with a 5.3 and a 4L60 in it already that are good. I know they're good. So I'm more than likely, while I have essentially a bare frame on that white truck, I'm going to drop that V8 drivetrain into it as well. So when it's all said and done, it'll be a V8 5.3 4L60 single cab short bed, and we'll just need to do some paint work and get it through enhanced inspection. If you were wondering why I'm going through all the effort of combining these two cabs, I could fix that white cab, but then I'm getting into body work, more body work, rust repair, and the underside of that cab just isn't nice enough. This cab is rust free, so I'm really not going to have to do any sheet metal repair, maybe a little bit of body work before I paint it, but it's way less work to just swap this nice rust free cab onto that frame along with the bed, and then I'll be able to paint everything. So enhanced inspection, they will not pass with any kind of rust in the body at all. It's got to be no rust, or I should say no penetrating rust. Surface rust, they're not going to bust us up about, but these trucks are nice enough. I can combine them together we'll have a pretty nice truck when I'm done. Unfortunately, I'll have a reconstructed title, but everything about it will be good to go. Nice solid frame, solid cab, solid bed, solid front clip, healthy 5.3 and 4 L60, and should be ready to go. So today, I don't have a ton of time left with the day. I'm gonna start trying to get some of the mangled up front end off of this thing. There's obviously the hood, this fender, the fender on the other side, the bumper. They're all junk, so I'm gonna try to get those off and get them loaded up in the scrap metal truck. It looks like it may have tweaked the fender mount on this cab a little bit, but I think we can pull that back out without too much issue or concern. And everything else I think will be okay. So I guess we just start taking stuff apart. Guys, moving right along. So I got all of the damaged front clip off of this truck. I've got the cab completely disconnected, body mounts out, seatbelt restraints out, everything that's connected to the engine undone, brake set master unhooked. Long story short, this cab is ready to be lifted up off the frame, but I only have one set of 4x4s, which I need to be able to lift the cab up off the frame. So I think what I'm gonna do, and what's gonna require me to do the least shuffling around of things that I really don't want to damage, is get the bed and front clip off of this one. In the bed, I am gonna pull this bedside because it's still in pretty good, I mean, it's in good shape. It's not cracked up or bent up or banged up or anything like that. So I'm gonna pull this bedside, save that to be resold, and then I'll get the bed off, get the front clip off and set aside, get the cab off and set aside, and then I'll be ready to roll this frame right under that cab. So I'm not gonna bother with the time lapse on this one. It's exactly the same as what you just saw me do, only this one's not all smashed up in the front. So I'll probably bring you guys back when I have an update. Well guys, it's about 3 hours later, and this truck is stripped. Well, mostly. It's ready for me to lift the cab up off of it. I've got all the parts that I'm gonna save, reuse over here. I got the bedside off, put that in storage. The bed itself is junk, so that's over in the junk pile. And got everything unbolted underneath, unhooked, disconnected. and my board set up, so I'm ready to lift this cab up and off of here. And then my plan is, once I lift it up and off, I'm going to bring the tractor in, and I think I can just lift the cab with the tractor and move it out of my way. I hope so. Unfortunately, I do have a few repairs I'm gonna have to make to this frame. Nothing major, but this cross member is rusted through, which is a common issue on these. We'll get that replaced. And then this little support here is hanging by a thread, so I'm gonna get that replaced. Unfortunately, this frame, the back section is super clean. So I'll be able to take this cross member out of it and put it on that one. And I'm thinking, because this is a two-wheel drive frame, it doesn't have that little support right here. But I mean, it doesn't look like anything fancy. It's just pretty much a piece of flat plate. So I'm sure I can get a piece of steel and get that replaced. So it's where it needs to be. But yeah, I'm gonna set you up and get this cab lifted up off, and then roll the frame out of the way so I can get the cab out of the workshop. All right, folks, it's a few hours later. I went and spent some time with the kids and family and had some fun, and came back out before it got dark. It's dark now, but came back out before it got dark to get this frame cleaned up and really get a good look and figure out what I need to do. So I got it all blasted, pressure washed off, cleaned up, and a lot of just the surface rust blasted right off, which is nice. But unfortunately, this rear section is a little rougher than I thought it was, so I got some thinking to do. As I said before, I already showed you, this cross member needs to be replaced. There's only this little section in the top that's left holding it up, and that supports the gas tank. So we definitely got to do something about that. I showed you earlier, this little support over here is rusted through, and I can see on this side, the backing plate for this cross member is rusted through. And then I noticed something else as I was getting things blasted, pressure washed, is our little bump stop, and this section of frame here is rusted pretty bad. The vertical, the inside boxing plate is rusted about 8 inches up there along the gas tank. It's rusted through down here on the bottom plate. So this frame needs a little bit more repair than I had originally thought. You can see it's rusted through on the outside here as well. So I gotta decide what I want to do with this thing. I still want to make a complete truck out of the two, because I've come this far, and I really don't think, I think I can make this a win, and I can still make it safe. So I'm gonna come back down tomorrow evening. I'm gonna get the gas tanks out of this one and out of that one. Neither one of them can or will or need to run again. So it's not a big deal if I drop the gas tanks out, get them disabled, and then get a closer look at how bad the frame is on this one behind the gas tank here. Once I have the fuel tanks out, I want to take some measurements, and then I think I have an idea what I think I can do, but I got to get some measurements first to see if it's a good idea or if it's not viable. So I'll bring you guys back tomorrow after I've done some gas tank removing and measuring and deciding. All right, everybody, it's the next evening. I've been down here for a little bit. I've been getting some measurements, looking at what needs to be replaced, what I'm not happy with, and I've got a plan together here. I think this is gonna be it's going to be the best quality repair as well as the safest repair that I can make on this thing. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to replace an entire section of the frame. So this is the not smashed but rusty frame from the 2000. Now I've taken a bunch of measurements. The nice thing is I've got a lot of holes that are exactly the same on both frames. This bed mount is the same on both frames. These holes are the same on both frames. And the length, overall length, is the same on both frames. So I have lots of good reference points here. And what I was able to measure out and find is from this body mount rearward, the frames are pretty much identical. There are two differences that I see. The other frame, the 2002 frame, does not have this support bracket here. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if GM just decided it wasn't serving any benefit, it wasn't helpful, because it's not on the other four-wheel drive frames I have either. The other difference is this farthest rear cross member is different. On this one, it's another tubular cross member. On the 2002, it's a C-channel cross member. Everything else, the leaf spring hangers, the bed mount locations, the cross member locations, shock mounts, the dimensions of the frame itself is all identical between this frame and that frame. Man, and I just noticed too, even more rust. Over here, we're rusted all the way through. So I really think what is going to require the least amount of cutting out rust, putting in new, cutting out rust, putting in new, and will be the most factory-like repair is we're going to cut off this rear section of frame and we're going to put on that rear section of frame. This rear section, you can see, is just so much nicer than that one. I mean, it's still got the factory undercoat on it in most places. The cross members aren't rusty. Everything is good. So I think cutting off and replacing the whole rear section of frame is going to be the strongest repair, the highest quality repair that I can make. And not to mention, really, once I do that, from where I plan to cut forward, this frame is still really nice. There's very little rust, it's just surface rust. And what I'm thinking I'm gonna do here is, I'm gonna get my little parking brake cable bracket removed, and I'm just using this side for reference. It'll be identical on both sides. We're gonna split hairs. We're gonna cut straight down the frame, right down to about here, right next to where that bolt goes in. Then we're gonna cut this way, right to the corner of where the frame is dimpled here, and then we're gonna cut straight down. We're gonna do the exact same cut on both frames, on both sides of both frames. That'll make it easy to locate and line it back up. Exactly the same. I'll be able to take measurements, make sure everything is exactly dimensionally the same as it is now. I'll get that welded inside and outside. And then in doing it that way, I will have access to the back on this side and on that side. So like I said, I'll be able to weld inside and outside on both sides of the frame. And then on the inside, and I'll just show you on the passenger side, I'm gonna plate from here. I'm gonna remove this piece and then we're gonna plate it. We're gonna match the shape of this cross member support here, and then we're gonna plate about 12 inches forward and down. And between the weld and then plating, it'll be stronger than the factory frame ever was, so we won't have to worry about any problems, and we'll have nice, clean new frame rail, and we'll be able to get this thing put all back together, and I don't have to buy a bunch of stuff that I don't already have. I did order a little bit of 1/8" plate to do my inside frame rail plates there, but everything else I have. So I think the most logical thing and the least amount of do it twice is gonna be get this cab up and off of this frame, start getting the rear suspension and stuff, the things I'm not gonna need, the spare tire carrier, rear bumper, exhaust, hangers, shock absorbers, get all the stuff I don't need off of this frame, and then I'll be able to do the exact same thing on that frame, and then we'll put them both back together. So I'll probably, first thing I gotta do though is get the fuel out of the tanks and then drop the tanks out of the way. So I'm gonna get to it. I'll bring you guys back when I have some progress. Nothing super exciting until I start cutting and stuff. So that'll probably be the next time I pick the camera up. All right guys, it's midnight. I'm ready to call it for the night. I'm at a good stopping place. I've got this frame stripped pretty much, ready to be cut and grafted onto the other frame. And this one, fortunately, getting that tank off, no surprises. Everything looks just as good as I expected it to. I probably will roll this outside tomorrow afternoon and pressure wash it just so it's as clean as possible when I'm ready to start cutting and moving stuff around. My good frame is also fully torn down, ready for me to start getting things jigged up and start getting ready to cut. I did find, we've got penetrating rust here. This cross member, there's literally only a little 1" piece still holding on there. We've got penetrating rust through the bottom plate. This whole bottom section of this gusset is missing. The other gusset over there is rusted completely through. So the rust was substantially further than I first expected on this thing. Now the good news here is up where I plan to do my splice, this section here, we've still got good solid frame rail. And the way that I'm planning to do my cut is actually gonna work out pretty much perfectly, that I'll eliminate, this is the closest part and the worst part, and that's just shy of where my cut is gonna be. So we're gonna come down, come back, and come down. And everything here where I plan to be welding, it's still nice and thick. Still 1/8" on this inside lip, still 1/8" on the bottom plate, 1/8" on the outer plate. The top is still good. So we'll have plenty of strength where we're gonna do our cut and weld. And then these gusset plates on both sides that are rusted completely through, I'm gonna cut those out, grind it flat, smooth, get it all cleaned up. And then like I said, we'll box the inside of the frame right there with some more 1/8" plate, just to add a little strength, a little insurance, and guys, it's gonna be stronger than it was from the factory. You don't know this about me, but when I was at Wyotech, one of the courses I took was chassis fab and high performance powertrains. We learned all about cutting and splicing frames. I've cut and spliced frames before. I've done, geez, what did I do? My graduation project was a mud truck. I shortened that frame by 14 inches. We put a 900 horsepower big block in that thing, and it rips. And that frame is stronger than it ever was. There's still no signs of any issues on that thing. I've done a Toyota Tacoma that the guy's still driving that thing around, never had any issues with it. So I'm not afraid at all of doing this cut and splice and putting this healthier section of frame back in this truck. I mean, it's definitely gonna be stronger than it is now. By the time I'm done, I think it's gonna be stronger than it was from the factory. And we'll give this truck a new lease on life. I looked at the cab, it would have been due for safety inspection this month for annual safety inspection. And if they brought it to me, there's no way I would have passed this on inspection with how substantial the rust is on the back of this thing. But we've got the parts and we've got the skills. We're gonna fix it better than it ever was. And this truck will get a new lease on life. And hopefully a new owner that appreciates it. So that's it for tonight. I'm going in to get some rest. We'll hit it hard again tomorrow. I'm so excited about doing this framework. I forgot to tell you what else I've been doing while I was out here. Both tanks were pretty much full, so it took a while to pump all the fuel out of them. While that was pumping, I went ahead, I took the good brake lines off of our donor truck and put them on here on our nice truck, what will be our nice truck. I'm guessing previous owner, because I really hope it wasn't an actual mechanic or tech that did this, did some of their own custom brake work. And they fortunately, I mean, it's so kind of them, they left all of the old rusted out brake lines on the frame still, and they ran some new brake lines, and we can see we've got 1, 2, 3 compression fittings here on those 2 sections, 4, 5, 6, 3 more compression fittings on those couple sections. I really like the 2 compressions in the same section of line. That's really high quality repairs. And I noticed also they probably had a fuel evaporation problem with this thing. That's all the gas filler neck. So I bet this thing probably smelled pretty gassy when you parked it. And it probably seemed to be lower on fuel if you left it parked for any extended period of time. But I've got those new lines on. I've got the rear section too. So once we get done our splice and getting that new section of frame on, we'll be able to put that new brake line on there, new to this truck brake line on there. We'll have nice solid brake lines the whole way back too. I also noticed we've got another super high quality splice repair here on our fuel supply and return lines. Fortunately, we weren't going to be using those anyway because the V6 lines are different from the V8 lines on these 99 to 02 trucks. So I have new fuel lines for a V8 coming, and we'll get that taken care of as well. So definitely some country repairs, I'll call them, on this thing, but we're gonna make it right. It's gonna be better than it was from the factory when I get done with it. See you guys tomorrow. All right, everybody, it's the next evening. Been down here for about an hour or so. I've got both of these frames jigged up, and they're ready for me to start prepping for my cuts. So here's where we're at. Now, I've got both frames set up identical. They're supported in different ways, but the important part here is, and hopefully you can see this, I've got the frame rails level side to side and level front to back. Get the crud off my level there. There we go. And I've got the other frame set up the exact same way. Level side to side. Boom. And level front to back. So now I know that the portion of the frame that I'm going to be cutting off and transplanting, it's set up identical. And like I said the other day, from everything I can tell, from this cross member back, the frames are the same, with the exception of the gussets on the four-wheel drive frame, which we're going to be replacing anyway. Now, the reason this is important is by having them both set up, all leveled out and mocked up, and sitting on, this one's on the lift, that one is on jack stands, and supported in that way, I can duplicate this setup. So after I make my cuts, I can bring that piece of frame over, and I can, again, get it set up to this frame, level side to side, level front to back, and then all I'll need to do is cross-reference my measurements from my set points at the rear up to my set points in the front to make sure I have it square diagonally and square horizontally. The other reason this is important is actually mapping my cuts. And like I said, I plan on doing a stepped cut. So next thing I'll do here is get all of the surface rust ground off so I have nice clean metal to mark on. I'll choose exactly where I'm gonna start my cut, and I will map it out, mark it out in Sharpie marker exactly the same on this side, on that side, and on both sides of this frame. And in doing that, it should be, from that point on, very cut and paste. I'll make my cuts, I'll get that section of frame rolled out of my way. I don't need that anymore. I'll make my cuts on this section of frame, and I should be able to literally move it over there, sit it into place, take my measurements, make my tacks, double check all my measurements, and she should be square, true, straight, better than factory. So that's why I've gone to all the trouble of doing all this setup. So I think that's a good stopping point for this video. The next video, I'll actually start out showing you the mapping of the cuts, making the cuts, and then probably getting the frame pieces grafted together. So I know I went through that kind of fast. If you have questions, drop them in the comments. I'm sure a ton of people aren't actually cutting and modifying frames like this, but if you are, here's how I did it. So that's it for this one. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.